A cowboy rescued a woman from snow, then discovered she was carrying his future child. The wind howled across the icy plains like a living thing. Snow whipped sideways, stinging the cowboy's face as he urged his mechanical horse forward. Its metal hooves clanged against frozen ground, sparks flying when they struck hidden rocks beneath a thin snow layer. He had ridden these plains for years, alone most of the time, checking homesteads, repairing broken circuits, and making sure no wandering wildlife, or worse, raiders, found trouble. His eyes, sharp and steady, caught movement through the white blur. At first he thought it might be a shadow of a rock, but the motion repeated, faint and desperate. A figure was stumbling across the snow, hunched arms flailing, fighting the wind itself. The cowboy's heart clenched. No one should be out here alone. He nudged the horse faster. "Hold steady, girl," he murmured. The horse whinnied, steam rising from its exhaust vents, and pressed on. The figure ahead was a woman. She was small, wrapped in a tattered cloak, but the snow had soaked it through. Her hair, dark and tangled, whipped around her pale face. One moment she fell forward, the next she was crawling, dragging herself inch by inch. The cowboy gritted his teeth and kicked the horse into a sprint. His coat flapped like a sail, and the snow stung his cheeks, but he didn't slow. He knew that if he didn't reach her soon, the snowstorm would bury her completely. When he drew closer, he saw her face clearly for the first time. It was young, and there was something striking in her eyes despite the frostbite creeping along her cheeks. Panic and exhaustion swirled there, but so did a quiet defiance. She was fighting, even when the cold seemed to fight harder. He called out, "Hey, hold on." "I got you!" His voice cut through the wind, rough but urgent. The woman froze, barely responding, her eyes wide with fear. The horse skidded in the snow, and the cowboy leapt down, racing forward. He grabbed her arm, strong and steady. "I said I got you. Come on." She tried to resist at first, her body trembling, her muscles stiff from cold. But he held firm. Slowly, she let him lift her. He wrapped her in his coat over the tattered cloak and pressed her against his chest. The warmth of his body and the horse's heating elements began to fight the frost. "Easy now," he said. "I'll get you somewhere warm." The journey back to his cabin was tense. The storm was worse now, snow blinding, and winds cutting like knives. He held her close, talking to her in low tones to calm her. She shivered violently, and he noticed her breaths came in short, shallow gasps. Something told him she wasn't just cold, she was weak. Finally, they reached the small cabin at the edge of a frozen ridge. It was a simple structure, reinforced for storms, with a chimney puffing gentle smoke. He kicked the door open, carried her inside, and set her on a bench near the fireplace. Sparks of warmth danced across her pale face, and her shivering slowed just a little. He tore off his own coat and wrapped it tightly around her shoulders. "Drink this," he said, handing her a small flask of warm water mixed with a nutrient gel. She hesitated but took it, her lips trembling. The warmth seeped into her, and she let out a soft sigh. The cowboy pulled a blanket over her, tucked it around her legs, and knelt beside her. "Name's Jace," he said simply. "You're safe now. Just hang on." "Can you tell me your name?" The woman blinked, her lips moving slightly, but no words came. Instead, she shook her head, eyes darting toward the door, as if expecting someone or something to follow. Jace frowned. "No one's coming in here," he said. "You're safe, for now at least." He scanned the room quickly, checking his instruments. Small monitors and sensors dotted the cabin, picking up the storm's fury outside. The readings were extreme. Anyone unprepared could freeze within minutes. She finally whispered, I can't stay. They'll find me." Jace tilted his head. "Who? Who'll find you?" She didn't answer. Her gaze dropped to the floor, and she hugged her knees, shaking slightly. Jace could feel it. Fear, but also exhaustion so deep it burned through her skin. He knew then that he couldn't force answers. She'd reveal what she wanted when she trusted him. He went to the corner and adjusted a small heating unit, warming the room. "You're going to need rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." Outside, the storm raged, but inside the cabin, warmth and quiet held them in a fragile bubble. Jace kept an eye on her, checking her pulse, making sure she was breathing steadily. Occasionally, she would stir, shiver, and mutter fragments he couldn't understand. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her. She slept, curling into the blanket. Jace sat in a chair nearby, silent, listening to the wind. Something felt off. Not in a threatening way, but subtle. He noticed the curve of her belly beneath the layers of cloth, faint but unmistakable. He froze. His mind raced. Could it be? He had seen signs before, subtle hints when people carried life inside them, but her timing, her journey, the desperation, he couldn't be sure yet. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just watched the firelight flicker across her face, soft and pale, thinking of the possibilities. The night stretched on. The wind died down slightly, leaving a cold, eerie silence. Jace poured himself a cup of strong coffee, sipping slowly, eyes never leaving her form. She was young, fragile, yet strong in ways he couldn't understand. She had survived the storm, survived the plains, and now she was here, in his cabin, trusting him by default. Morning came slowly. The sun struggled to pierce the clouds, casting pale light over the snow. The woman awoke, blinking at the fire. She looked at Jace, and for the first time he saw recognition in her eyes. Not of him, exactly, but of safety, a fragile trust. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Jace nodded. "Don't thank me yet. You've got a long way to go, but you're safe for now. That's what matters." She looked down at her hands, then at him. I need to move," she said, her voice gaining strength. "They'll come. They always come." "Then we move together." "You're not going out there alone, not like that." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Not fully trusting, but understanding that survival required an ally. Jace felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. It wasn't just the storm or the plains anymore. It was her journey, and possibly something more he could barely imagine. He helped her to her feet, steadying her, and checked her cloak and gear. They would need food, water, shelter beyond this cabin. He didn't yet know the full story of who she was, where she came from, or why she had been running, but he knew one thing. She was important. And whatever lay ahead, he would face it with her. For now they stood in silence, listening to the soft creak of the cabin, the faint wind outside, the snow slowly settling on the plains. Jace looked at her, at the quiet determination in her eyes, and felt something stir within him he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that the plains, cold and cruel as they were, might yet give birth to something unexpected. Something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. And he didn't yet know that the tiny life she carried inside her would change everything, not just for him, but for the future of the frontier itself. The snow outside continued to fall, soft and white, covering the plains in silence. Inside the cabin, a new chapter was beginning, one of survival, trust, and destiny intertwined, with a lone cowboy standing between the storm and the woman who had stumbled into his life, unknowingly carrying the spark of what was to come. The snowstorm showed no mercy. Days passed, the wind howling like a living beast outside the cabin, and the plains were nothing but a white blur. Inside, the fire crackled, offering warmth and faint light against the dim winter day. The cowboy Jace and the woman, whose name he still didn't know, were trapped together. It was not just the storm that held them, it was survival, and now an unspoken bond forming between them. Jace worked quietly, checking the cabin's instruments. A sensor blinked, warning of unstable snow levels near the ridge. "Could be an avalanche if this keeps up," he muttered. "We'll need to move if it gets worse." The woman stirred on the bench, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. She shivered, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. Jace noticed the faint glow of frost on her skin and immediately stepped closer, brushing snow from her hair. "Easy," he said softly. "Just stay still. I'll keep you warm." She flinched, startled, but then relaxed slightly. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the room, the instruments, the windows. You do this often?" she asked in a low voice, curiosity breaking through her exhaustion. "Ride these plains?" Jace said, leaning against the wall. "Every day. Snow, wind, storms, you name it." He paused, then added, "I've never seen anyone out there like you." She looked down, tugging her knees closer. I didn't expect to survive." Her voice was small but steady. They chased me. They won't stop." Jace's brow furrowed. "Who's chasing you?" She shook her head. "I can't say. Not yet. They would know I told." She clenched her fists, white-knuckled against the blanket. "I only wanted to escape, to find safety, and now," her voice faltered. "Now you've got it," Jace said gently, placing a hand on the bench near her shoulder. "You're safe with me. But we'll need a plan. We can't just wait for them to come. She nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and relief. She looked around the cabin, noticing the instruments, the small gadgets Jace used to survive in these harsh plains. "You're prepared," she said softly. "I've got to be," he replied. "Out here it's killer freeze." For a while, silence fell between them. The storm roared outside, but inside there was only the fire and their breathing. Jace observed her carefully. She was more than a woman fleeing danger. Her movements, even weak, were precise. She checked the cabin methodically, touching controls, assessing weak points in the structure. It was instinctive. "Are you trained?" he asked, curiosity laced in his voice. She hesitated. "You could say that. I've had to survive things most people wouldn't even believe." Her gaze dropped to her hands, hidden beneath the blanket. "I've been running a long time." He didn't press. Survival stories were never fully told in one sitting, and he knew better than to force her trust. Instead, he pulled out some dried meat and water from a small cabinet. "Eat," he said. "You need strength." She hesitated, but took a piece. As she chewed slowly, he noticed subtle movements, small adjustments in her posture that told him she was alert even while eating. The storm had not dulled her senses. It had sharpened them. After a while, she spoke again. "You're not like the others, the people I've seen." "I've always been alone," he said simply. "I don't mind it much, but sometimes it gets lonely." "Lonely. I know that feeling." She looked at him, a faint spark of connection forming. For the first time, Jace sensed not just fear, but recognition. She trusted him in a way that went beyond words, even if just barely. They spent the day tending to the cabin, repairing small broken circuits, checking the snow levels, and reinforcing the structure against further storms. She moved with a quiet efficiency that impressed him. Each action was deliberate, careful. At one point, she bent to adjust a sensor, and Jace caught a glimpse of the faint curve beneath her layers. The truth he had suspected the night before, her pregnancy, was becoming clearer. He didn't speak, not yet. He wasn't ready to confront the reality of it. Instead, he continued his work, keeping an eye on her. She noticed it too, but said nothing. Trust was delicate, fragile, and he didn't want to break it. As evening fell, the storm outside began to change. The wind shifted, and a faint hum appeared on his instruments. Small dots of movement appeared on the monitor approaching from the distance. Jace's eyes narrowed. "Drones? Or something worse?" "They're close," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. He grabbed a small blaster from the wall, checking the charge. "Stay down." She obeyed instinctively, ducking behind a bench, eyes wide but calm. Her hands hovered near her cloak, as if ready to use some hidden tool or weapon. Jace realized that she wasn't helpless at all. She was hiding strength, waiting for the right moment. He could see it now. A drone, sleek and silent, scanning the area. The storm had concealed them, but not enough. Jace gritted his teeth. "They're hunting you," he said. "And now they know where you are." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I can handle myself," she said, her voice firm but quiet. But not with them out there. There was fear, yes, but determination too. He felt something stir within him, something old and familiar. Responsibility, yes, but also protectiveness. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about trust, about a bond that had been forced into being by circumstance, snow, and fate. They prepared the cabin, setting small traps and alarms. Jace explained each step as he went, keeping her involved. She followed closely, learning quickly, adapting with instinct that mirrored his own. By the time night fell fully, they were ready. The cabin was secure, and the two of them sat near the fire, exhausted but alert. Finally, she spoke. I need to tell you something." Jace leaned back, waiting. She took a deep breath. "I'm carrying a child." The words were simple, but heavy with meaning. She looked at him, gauging his reaction, ready to flee if needed. Jace froze, heart hammering. His mind raced. He had suspected, but now hearing it confirmed, something inside him shifted. Just stared at her, measuring, processing. Don't panic," she said quickly. "It's not what you think. I don't know how. It's complicated." "Complicated?" he asked, voice low. "What do you mean?" Her eyes flicked to the fire, then back to him. "I didn't plan this. I didn't even know who you were before the storm. But somehow this child, it's connected to you? I think it's meant to be." Jace's mind reeled. Meant to be? The plains, the storm, her sudden appearance, it all felt like fate, but he wasn't sure how to respond. Instead, he reached out a hand, gently, letting her see he wasn't alarmed, only cautious and attentive. "Okay," he said finally. "We'll deal with that later. Right now, we survive. Together." Her lips curved in a faint, grateful smile. It wasn't much, but it was enough. For now, survival came first. Everything else, answers, explanations, futures, would come later. Outside, the storm continued its howl, but inside, for the first time in days, there was warmth. A fragile trust had formed, unspoken but strong. Jace and the woman, bound by circumstance and now by the mystery of a child yet unborn, faced the storm together. They didn't know what lay beyond the cabin walls, nor the dangers still hunting them across the snow-covered plains. But for the first time, they were not alone. They were a team. They were allies, and they were ready to face whatever the frozen frontier would throw at them next. And somewhere, deep inside, Jace felt a spark of hope. The plains were vast, cruel, and empty, but they could endure them. Together, the snow had finally eased into a quiet flurry, dusting the plains in a thin, sparkling layer. The storm that had trapped Jace and the woman inside the cabin for days had passed, leaving a still, cold world outside. But the quiet brought no comfort. It was the calm before something greater, something unseen, approached. Jace paced the cabin, checking his instruments again. The drones that had scouted them before were gone, but the warning lights on his sensor panel blinked faintly. There was a pattern to the signals, small, methodical, deliberate. Someone was tracking them, and they weren't far. The woman sat wrapped in a blanket near the fire, her hands resting lightly on her belly. Jace noticed it again. The curve was more pronounced, a gentle roundness beneath her clothing. She looked up at him when he glanced her way, a quiet mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "You're thinking about it," she said softly, almost a whisper. Jace stopped pacing. "I am," he admitted. "I see it now, and I don't know what it means, yet." She nodded, as if expecting his hesitation. "It means the child is important," she said. "More than either of us." "Important how?" She shifted slightly, careful not to make herself uncomfortable. "I've been protecting something for a long time. Something they want. And the child carries it inside them. I didn't know how or why at first. But the signals, the way the drones found us, the way I was guided to you, it all connects." "You're saying this child is somehow connected to me?" She nodded. "I think so. Somehow your bloodline, your genetics, your presence, it's part of this child's survival. And now you know why they were hunting me. They're after the child." The words hung in the air like frost. Jace felt a chill run down his spine, not from the cold, but from the weight of responsibility. "So I have to protect you, and the child." "Yes," she said simply, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions behind it. "I can't do this alone. And I don't want to. Not anymore." He had always known the frontier was harsh, dangerous, unforgiving. He had faced storms, wild animals, even raiders. But this was different. This wasn't just survival. This was destiny. He moved closer and knelt beside her. "We'll do it together," he said, "no matter what comes." She gave a faint smile, the first real warmth he had seen in her eyes. "Together," she echoed. They spent the day preparing for the journey ahead. Jace checked his weapons, repaired his mechanical horse, and packed supplies. She assisted quietly, her hands moving with precision, her mind clearly focused on the task. She also shared knowledge of advanced survival techniques, things Jace had never seen before, emergency energy shields, compact nutrient capsules, and a small personal shield generator that could protect them from sensors and attacks. "You've been through a lot," Jace said quietly as he watched her work. "I can see it in your eyes. Every movement, every decision, it's all survival, all instinct." She looked up briefly. "I've had to be," she said. "And now I need to survive for more than just me." She glanced down at her belly, and Jace felt a surge of resolve. This child, unborn yet powerful in its significance, was now a shared responsibility. By late afternoon, the snow had stopped completely. The sun barely touched the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains. Jace mounted his horse first, then helped her onto it, supporting her carefully. Her weight was light, but the care in his touch was instinctive. As they moved across the white landscape, Jace felt a strange sense of familiarity. The plains were vast, empty, and silent, yet they seemed to guide him. The paths he had known for years now felt like a map, not just of the land, but of fate itself. Hours later, they reached the edge of a ridge where the snow thinned. Jace paused, scanning the horizon. In the distance, a faint glow flickered. Alien lights, moving with deliberate rhythm. He narrowed his eyes. Drones? Scouts? Or worse? "They're close," he said. "Stay behind me." There was fear, yes, but also trust. Jace knew she believed he could protect her. That trust strengthened his resolve. The glow grew brighter, revealing a small fleet of scouts, sleek, low-flying crafts, their lights scanning, searching. Jace cursed under his breath. They had been followed all along. "We can't outrun them," he said. "We need a plan." She looked around, her eyes sharp. "There's a canyon not far east," she said. "It's narrow with overhangs." "Drones have trouble there. We can hide, and if we move carefully, they won't detect us." Jace nodded. "Lead the way." They moved quickly. Carefully, the horses' metal hooves clattering softly against the ice. The sun dipped lower, casting the canyon in shadow. They entered the narrow passage, walls rising high on either side, jagged and cold. The drones passed overhead, their sensors scanning, but the canyon's angles and shadows shielded them. Inside, Jace dismounted and helped her down. "Good thinking," he said. "This should give us some time." "Time, but not forever. They'll adapt." Jace studied her. "Then we adapt faster." They rested briefly, using the canyon's natural alcoves for cover. Jace checked their supplies again while she adjusted her cloak and gear. He noticed a small device in her hand, a tracker of some sort, glowing faintly. "What's that?" he asked. "A locator," she said. "They use it to find me, but I can reverse it, make it feed false signals. They'll think I'm elsewhere." "Fancy," she smiled faintly. "I've had to be clever." As night fell, they sat near a small fire she had managed to start using compressed fuel. The warmth was comforting, but the shadows of the canyon seemed to press in. Jace thought about what she had said, the child, the danger, the pursuit. It was more than survival now. It was a mission, a journey, a path they had been thrown onto by fate itself. She looked at him, eyes reflecting the firelight. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "You could turn back, leave me to whatever comes." He shook his head firmly. "Not an option. Not after what I've seen. Not after what we've been through. You and the child. You're not alone anymore." She studied him, a quiet gratitude in her gaze. "Thank you," she said. "I've never had someone stay, not like this." Jace simply nodded. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. He would protect her, no matter what. The night stretched on, the canyon quiet except for the occasional sound of ice shifting or the distant hum of drone engines. They shared a silent meal, conserving energy, and planned the next move. "Tomorrow," she said, "we move further east. There's a settlement, hidden. They won't find us there, at least. Not easily. Then we rest tonight. Tomorrow we continue. And whatever happens, we face it together." She nodded, settling against the canyon wall, hands on her belly. He could see the determination in her eyes and the trust. And somewhere deep inside he felt the spark of hope, the belief that, together, they could survive whatever the frozen plains and the hunters beyond threw at them. Outside, the wind whispered through the canyon, carrying the faint sounds of distant engines. But inside, near the fire, there was warmth, courage, and a growing bond. They were no longer just a cowboy and a hunted woman. They were allies. They were protectors. And they were the guardians of a future that had yet to be written. Jace kept watch through the night, eyes scanning the canyon's mouth. The stars above twinkled faintly through gaps in the jagged cliffs, cold but unbroken. He knew the night would be long, but he was ready. Ready for the chase, ready for the dangers, and ready for the revelation that was yet to come. Because soon the truth about the child and its connection to him would become clear, and when that happened, there would be no turning back. For now, all they could do was survive and trust that their combined strength, courage, and instincts would carry them through the night. The sun rose pale and weak over the canyon, painting the snow in shades of silver and blue. Jace had stayed awake most of the night, keeping watch while the woman rested, curled beneath layers of blankets, her hands lightly resting on her belly. The quiet canyon offered them a brief refuge, but both knew it wouldn't last. Their enemies were still out there, relentless and patient. Jace led the way cautiously, stepping carefully over ice and loose stones. The woman followed, her small steps measured and careful. She had regained some strength overnight, but the journey was still dangerous. Jace noticed every movement, every wince, and adjusted his pace to match hers. He felt a protective urgency he hadn't expected to feel, not just for her, but for the child she carried. They reached the edge of the canyon and looked down at a frozen valley below. Smoke rose faintly in the distance, an isolated settlement, hidden among the hills. Jace's instincts told him it was their only chance. If they could reach it before the drones or their hunters, they would have safety, if only for a while. "Stay close," Jace said. "We're almost there, but it won't be easy." The woman nodded. Her eyes were steady, but Jace could see the tension in her jaw. She trusted him now, enough to follow blindly, but the journey demanded more than trust. It demanded survival skills, quick thinking, and courage. They moved down a steep slope, careful not to slip. The snow was soft in places, and jagged ice threatened every step. Midway, a faint hum reached their ears, almost drowned by the wind. Jace froze. "They're close," he whispered. The woman stiffened, glancing toward the sound. Drones appeared, sleek and silver, moving silently above the valley. Their sensors scanned the area, looking for movement, for heat, for signs of life. "Go!" Jace shouted. He grabbed her hand, and they sprinted across the snow, sliding over ice patches, leaping over rocks. The drones adjusted course, following, but the canyon's shadows and the hidden paths gave Jace an advantage. He knew the terrain, knew how to use it. The woman stumbled, her foot catching a hidden stone. Jace caught her instantly. "Hold on," he said, steadying her. She leaned against him, and for a moment he felt the fragility of her form, the vulnerability of the life she carried. "I'm fine," she said quickly, but he could see the strain in her face. They reached the valley floor, where the settlement lay, partially hidden by low hills and frozen streams. Smoke curled from chimneys, a sign of life and warmth. Jace exhaled, relief washing over him. "Almost there," he said. But before they could reach the settlement, a sudden flash of light streaked across the snow. A pulse of energy struck near them, kicking up snow and ice. The drones had fired. "Down!" Jace shouted, pushing her behind a boulder. The pulse left a scorch mark, melting the snow around it. Jace's pulse quickened. The hunters weren't just drones. They were armed, precise, and relentless. The woman peeked over the edge of the boulder. "We can't outrun them," she said. "We'll have to fight." He had no choice. He drew his blaster and fired, aiming carefully. The drones faltered under the blasts, their sensors momentarily disrupted. The woman adjusted her cloak, revealing a small device in her hand. She activated it, and a shimmering shield enveloped them. The pulses of the drones bounced harmlessly off the shield. "They adapted fast," Jace muttered. "Good thinking." "We don't have time to explain," she said, eyes sharp. "We move now!" They dashed across the valley, using boulders and small hills for cover. The settlement was closer now. Jace saw people moving within, carrying supplies, tending fires. He called out quickly, hoping they would understand. "Help! We need protection!" The settlers noticed immediately, rushing to meet them. They were prepared, armed, aware, ready for threats from the snow and beyond. Jace and the woman moved quickly under their cover. The hunters approached, but the settlers formed a defensive line, energy shields flaring, blasters ready. Jace and the woman reached the center of the settlement. For a moment they were safe. The child was still unborn, but the immediate danger was behind them. She sank to her knees, exhaustion and relief washing over her. Jace knelt beside her, checking her carefully. "You're safe now," he said softly. "For now." She looked up at him, eyes reflecting the firelight of the settlement. I need to tell you everything," she said. "About the child, about why I was hunted, about why you were meant to be part of this." Jace listened quietly, knowing that the truth would change everything. "The child," she began, "carries something they want, something powerful. They've been tracking it across systems, across planets. I didn't understand why I was guided to you, but it's clear now. You are part of this child. Its survival depends on you as much as it depends on me." Jace's eyes widened. "Me?" he asked. How is that possible?" "I don't fully understand," she admitted, "but somehow your DNA, your bloodline, it's linked to the child. It's why I was drawn to you, why you found me in the storm, why the universe or whatever force is out there guided us together." He took a deep breath, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Then I protect you and the child, no matter what." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never had anyone stay. Not like this." Outside, the hunters had arrived at the valley's edge. The settlement prepared for a fight, shields flaring, blasters ready. Jace checked the woman again, then turned to face the oncoming threat. He was no longer just a cowboy. He was a guardian, a protector of a life yet to be born, a symbol of hope against the relentless pursuit of those who sought to destroy them. The battle began. Pulses of energy streaked across the snow, striking shields and melting ice. Jace moved with precision, taking down drones, guiding settlers, and protecting the woman. She assisted where she could, her instincts and devices disrupting the hunters' systems. Together, they were a team. A blend of frontier skill, futuristic tech, and trust forged in the storm. Hours passed. The attackers faltered against the settlers' combined strength and the woman's clever devices. Slowly they retreated, recognizing that the cost of victory was too high. The settlement had held, and Jace and the woman were safe, for now. After the last pulse faded, Jace turned to her. She looked exhausted but alive, her hands gently resting on her belly. "We did it," he said quietly. She smiled faintly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes, we survived." Jace took her hands in his. "This child, it's important. Not just to us, but to everything we're fighting for. I don't know what the future holds, but I promise I'll protect you both." She nodded, placing her free hand over his. "I trust you," she whispered. "And together, we'll face whatever comes next." The snow outside was quiet now. The storm had passed, leaving a world that was harsh but alive. The settlement offered safety, the hunters had retreated, and for the first time since the storm began, there was hope. Jace looked at the plains beyond the settlement. The horizon was vast, cold, and beautiful. He felt a deep resolve, a connection not just to the woman, but to the life growing within her. They had faced the storm, the snow, the hunters, and survived. Now the next journey awaited them, a journey of trust, love, and the promise of a future that neither of them could yet fully understand. He knelt beside her again, gently brushing her hair from her face. "Rest now," he said. "We've got more to do tomorrow, but tonight we survived." Together, she leaned against him, exhausted but comforted, and for the first time in weeks, a quiet peace settled over them. The child inside her moved slightly, a small reminder of what they were fighting for, a symbol of hope in a cold, uncertain world. He knew the storm would come again. Harsh winters, relentless hunters, and challenges beyond imagination. But he also knew this: as long as they faced it together, as long as he and the woman and the child stood as one, they could endure anything. And with that thought, he allowed himself a small, rare smile. The plains were vast, the snow unending, but they had found warmth, courage, and a future worth protecting. For the first time, he truly believed in destiny, not as something that happened to you, but as something you created. And together, they would create it.